I'd just like to start today by acknowledging the place that we are. So just taking a moment to just pause and come into the presence of actually being here, in this place, in this moment, at this time. Griefline acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land in which we live and work, and the many different nations across Australia. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, as the bearer of the memories and traditions, the cultures and the spiritual well-being of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples across the nation. We recognise their continuous connection to the land, water, sky and communities, and express gratitude that we can all share this land today. We share the sorrow for the costs of that sharing, and in the spirit of reconciliation, we have hope that we can move together forward towards healing and a connected future. We affirm that this land was, is, and will always be Aboriginal land, and we stand with Aboriginal people in acknowledging this truth.
So to deliver the opening address, I'd like to introduce Tim Richardson MP, Parliamentary Secretary for Mental Health and Suicide Prevention, Parliamentary Secretary for Men's Behaviour Change, and Member for Morty Alley.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you so much. There we go. I think I fixed it. There we go. I fixed it. I got the bugs out of that. There we are. Well, can I firstly also start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we meet, the Boonwurrung people, and pay my profound respects to elders past, present, and to any Aboriginal First Nations people that might be here today. This is such an important time as we're on the pathway of voice, truth and treaty. And when we think about loss and grief, there is no more profound than what we see in the impact to First Nations Australians and their journey as well. And obviously these 2,000 generations that came before us on this side here. Thank you to Kate and Louisa, who I'll get to shortly, who are the most magnificent team. And I'll come to the work that we're doing in mental health and wellbeing. And the work that Griefline's done. But firstly, can I give a big shout out to the Pride Centre and the people that have put today together. Every time I came through with my advisor, Anya, and Veronica saw us in, and I said, you've got to see the architecture. This is a spectacular place of inclusion, of love and support. The health and wellbeing outcomes that happen here are just nation leading, and it's such a fantastic facility. So I was really excited to come along tonight and share this moment with you. Can I acknowledge Nikki, the board chair? Nikki was here. Oh, there, Nikki. Matthew, thank you for all your work as board chair. Stephanie Chiu, the founder of the NEAMA. Have I got that right? Yeah, close. NOEMA. There we go. I'll have to practice it out. But thank you. And Sally and Imogen from the co-hosts of the Good Morning podcast. As anyone who is trying to search for health and wellbeing support goes through podcasts and listens and tries to find that help and support, and it's so critical that comes from people with lived and living experience. And the platform and to normalise grief, which we're all here to do as a community here tonight. Thank you for all your work and leadership that you do. And the platform has so many people's stories and lived experiences. As Louisa and Kate said, I have the honour of being Parliamentary Secretary for Suicide Prevention, mental health, but also men's behaviour change that supports the prevention of family violence and ending gender-based violence. Those portfolios really importantly intersect with the multitude of grief and senses of loss and impact that we have in community. And we know that grief means very different things to different people. And if you meet one person going through grief, that is a very individualised journey. And when I engage with victim survivors or people who've been bereaved by the loss of life to suicide, that journey is very individualised, and it can be ongoing impact over that time, and it can sneak up on people. There might be a period of solace that might be a day, it might be a week, and then suddenly there's a trigger or an impact that happens and affects them. And so at those really early moments of trying to process and the impact of grief and loss, to years down the track, Griefline is always there for people in our community. And so when I was first becoming onboarded to this role, I thought, I've got to go up to Griefline. I got the introductory letter, come and have a chat. And then I met two wonderful leaders in Kate and Louisa, who spoke so amazingly about how in every part of community we need to normalise grief and the impact that that has. And so when we see various elements in our community, like the Mental Health Royal Commission, and how we're trying to end social isolation, Griefline tries to do that and address that each and every day. When we think of the impacts that it can take 15 years off your life, social isolation and loneliness, Griefline is trying to work with that. When we talk about normalising a sense of loss and grief, whether that can be loss of family, a loved one, and I've got a badge on today for Daffodil Day and really acknowledge anyone that's been impacted and has that impact of cancer in their life, which will affect 1 in 2 Australians if you're able to live to the age of 85. That's where we need to, in every part of our community, normalise grief and that impact. And so the work that we're doing in the Victorian government and trying to establish some of these system-wide changes have hallmarks in the policy and work and advocacy that already comes from organisations that do so much great work. But one thing that's really powerful, and I did a bit of a stalk of some of the annual reports, and I'm really passionate about lived and living experience. It is a massive hallmark of the Royal Commission into mental health, because for too long, people with lived and living experience weren't part of their care and support journey. When you hear of someone who's answered the call, one of the volunteers down the other end of the phone, and the power of the words of, I finally felt heard. For years, I didn't feel like I had a place, or people heard, or it's been years down the track and I'm still experiencing this trauma, this visceral impact on how I carry myself each and every day. And finally, I felt validated. When you read that, it just gives you that sense of feeling and purpose. And so each and every one of you are connected to Griefline for a range of different reasons. Some of you might have that personal experience, or it might be, for me, we're so inspired by the leadership that you thought, well, in any policy areas that we do, I'll be always consulting and engaging with Griefline to see if we're on the right track for the evidence-based work that they do and their massive work and impact that they have in our community and society. So tonight's a chance to reflect on what's been achieved, the work of the board, the executive team and the great work that they do, the fundraising opportunity, but then the impact that you walk away trying to normalise grief in every element of community. And I'd say as well, if you've got some ideas of how we can improve that in a Victorian and Australian government context as well, we're up for that discussion and chat as well, because we're all on that journey together to make sure that people experiencing grief and impacting community are always supported and loved on that journey. So thank you so much for having me here tonight, and looking forward to seeing the panel discussion tonight and supporting Griefline into the future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Louisa, and thank you, Tim, for your very kind words. I'm often known for speaking a lot, but today I've been given a very small window for the fact that otherwise no one would get airtime. So I will try and be as brief as I can today. But look, really, today is about celebrating what the executive leadership team and all of the people involved with Griefline do every day and have achieved. But there's really, today's about sharing and celebrating what we've done, but also talking about and really reflecting on what we could be doing as a result of the wonderful people in this room and the support and your advocacy. I wanted to begin by expressing my gratitude for all the people not only that are here today, but have come before us. So my journey with Griefline starting 5 years ago, I had the pleasure of working with the founder, Catherine Cheney, former staff and volunteers, and really reflect on the foundation they created for Griefline and what it is today. I'd like to thank our former and current board members. Just as with our organisation, all of those participants are also volunteer, and we're here because of the passion and the fantastic work that our executive team do. And of course, we wouldn't be able to achieve what we do without our current staff and our incredible network of volunteers. You know, volunteers are really the backbone of everything that we do, and the students, as part of that volunteer network and the insight they bring to our organisation, is incredible and helps us achieve today and what our future goals are. I'd like to thank our program partners and our financial supporters. So CEMFIN, the New South Wales Ministry of Health, the Commonwealth Department of Health and Aged Care, Department of Social Services, the Magistrates Court of Victoria, Our Care Family Foundation, and many other people philanthropically that support our organisation, and many of the sponsors that have helped out for today. As a result of all of this support, it has facilitated Griefline to grow to where we are today and continue to support our evolution, to continue to reach thousands of the people within the Australian community. We can do so much, but our only limit is our resources. As Tim indicated, this is not only about the awareness of who we are, but also we have demonstrated the significant growth of our organisation in 5 years, and we're only at the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that we can do with the valuable research and foresight of the executive and the board. Every dollar we raise helps us continue our support to those who need it. Now I'd like to share more with you on a short video that really perfectly encapsulates our mission, because we know that everyone experiences grief. It's just how it shows up. So thank you.
Everyone experiences grief. The loss of someone dear to you, the death of a pet, infertility, a relationship breakdown, destruction of your home, or loss of livelihood, sorrow, anger, confusion, denial. You might have a racing heart, feel physically sick or hurt all over. Grief affects everyone differently. And while coping with loss is one of life's greatest challenges, you can move forward. It's never too early or late to ask for help and to find hope. You are not alone.
Well, if you haven't met me yet, I'm Kate Carhill and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Griefline.
And I'm Louisa Smith and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Griefline. So welcome everyone. As the video illustrated, grief is a universal experience and it affects everyone in different ways. And despite its commonality, many individuals suffer in silence. And that's due to stigma, shame, or the mistaken belief that their grief isn't valid. This is particularly critical because while most of us gradually find ways to cope with our loss, research shows that up to 10% of those who are bereaved experience chronic and debilitating grief. So, for example, that's about 10 people in this room right now. This severe form of grief can impede daily functioning and it's linked with significant mental and physical health challenges. This includes heightened risks of depression, anxiety, suicidality, and substance abuse.
At Griefline, we're committed to addressing this issue by normalising grief and supporting individuals through all types of loss, not just bereavement. By having courageous conversations, we help to reduce the stigma around grief. We help communities to grow from loss and ensure everyone receives the support they need to navigate their own personal experience. Griefline's vision is to lead a national health ecosystem where grief, regardless of its source, is met with recognition, understanding and effective support. Grounded in our core values of courage, compassion and connection, we strive to create an environment that addresses grief with empathy and with action. As a proud member of Mental Health Australia, Griefline is committed to working collaboratively within this network to prevent the escalation of mental health due to grief.
So before we share this year's highlights, let's take a quick look at Griefline's transformative 4 years up until now. So when Kate and I first took over the reins as the executive team, we were a team of 3, and today we have 12 full-time staff members. Our volunteer cohort has grown extraordinarily, and so currently we're numbering over 260 volunteers. And now our service is available every day of the year from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have expanded from 2 services, which was the helpline and a Victorian counselling program, to now providing 6 support services comprising our national helpline, online peer support forums, bereavement support groups, digital resources including fact sheets, podcasts, videos, ebooks, and our specialised bereavement counselling programs, which are now in Victoria and New South Wales. We've established a student placement program, so I'd like to recognise some of those students that are with us this afternoon. They are from Monash and RMIT, and our goal is to really give them an immersive experience. So they're master's students in social work and counselling, and they work across our telephone support services, they help moderate our forums, they even participate in our counselling programs, and this is really just around preparing them for careers in mental health. Now over to you, Kate, because we've got some more highlights.
We like talking about the things we've done. Really proud of two major milestones in the last 12 months. In May, Griefline received accreditation to the National Safety and Quality Digital Mental Health Standards, and that recognises that Griefline's programs and services are person-centred, they're safe, and they provide consistent quality care. We also achieved a major milestone in our reconciliation journey with our Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan endorsed by Reconciliation Australia.
We're thrilled to report a significant increase in user satisfaction, with our service rating rising from 2.8 to 4.5 out of 5, reflecting our commitment to continually improving the support we offer. Our helpline has seen significant growth this year, with nearly 17,000 more calls coming in, and our dedicated volunteers have answered around 15,000 calls, doubling last year's figures.
Griefline has been there for me for over the past 2 years. The volunteers are not only kind and understanding, they have given me suggestions on how to deal with my grief. They have listened to me sob hysterically, and they have explained that the feelings I did not expect to have after a loved one passed were completely normal. I can't speak highly enough of Griefline.
So we've enhanced digital accessibility by implementing the Recite Me assistive toolbar, which provides screen reader...
Change language.
And here's a demonstration. That's okay. It's okay. So this is the assistive toolbar up the top there, and you can choose which language.
Change language.
Get translated into. So there's over 100 languages that you can translate the content on our website to.
Change language. ابحث عن الأمل والاتصال.
So we've seen a 30% increase in website traffic and resource downloads just in the last 12 months. Each month we have 10,000 people using our website, and they access all of our resources and articles. They download said fact sheets that we mentioned earlier, and additionally our online forum environment has become an essential space for peer support, serving thousands of individuals.
Thank you for being so open and honest. I appreciate that so much. There's quite a few here who have no other avenue to express themselves and would go quietly crazy if we felt like the only one going through this. I joined this forum to connect with others, maybe even sort of journal, because I know even if you don't receive replies, there are people sitting at home reading and silently wiping their tears alongside us.
Initiatives and partnerships are two ways that Griefline can continue our work, and two that we've achieved in the last 12 months was working with the Department of Social Services to deliver a telephone support service that supported older Australians experiencing loneliness and social isolation. And we're very proud of our collaboration with Dying with Dignity Victoria. We're piloting VAD support groups for those impacted by a voluntary assisted death.
Dear Kerry and Jane, I am writing to express my gratitude for allowing me to be part of your pilot VAD grief group and for the incredible support and guidance you provided. The 6-week course was profoundly impactful and came at the perfect time, just a month and a half since losing Mum. The specific focus on those whose loved ones have utilised the voluntary assisted dying service was particularly meaningful. The safe and open environment you fostered allowed us to communicate freely about our grief and our loved ones' decisions to die with dignity. It was a relief to be among others who truly understood the complexities of our emotions and the significance of our loved ones' choices. Thank you for your compassion and for creating this much needed support group.
Now let's just talk a little bit more about our volunteers and students, because honestly they're the reason why we can deliver our national helpline. So I think we mentioned earlier that we've recruited a record number of volunteers. So this year it's over 260 and it is needed because demand for our telephone support services continually increase, and it allows us to meet the growing demand. However, I guess it is a necessity that we recruit at least 200 volunteers a year, and that does take a lot of resources. Our commitment to training extends to the next generation of social workers and counsellors, with 17 master's students gaining practical field experience with Griefline this year. And who better to share that experience than our volunteers themselves? So we had our annual Volunteer Values Awards in July, and we're going to share some videos from a couple of four of the recipients, who are Cecil, Josie, Casey and Lena. Casey's actually one of our student placements, and I believe Casey might be here. These individuals embody Griefline's values of courage, connection and compassion, and are committed to supporting each caller's experience of grief and loss without judgment, and recognising every caller's experience as being unique.
I personally, Nick, I think we spoke about this in the past, and I don't mind saying it. I've got my own monkeys on my back, my own baggage in terms of mental health issues, ranging from bipolar to cognitive impairment to PTSD. I use that experience to the fullest in terms of being able to show empathy and compassion for others, and to try and understand, I suppose, is the word, try and understand where people are coming from at the other end of the line.
I remember when I first started, and it was quite anxiety provoking, and partly because you don't know when that phone's going to ring, so you sort of just can be sitting there, but and then also not knowing what they're going to be discussing, so you have no background information or anything like that. But yeah, I would just say being able to just be with someone and listen to them, give them space and not judge them, I think that is quite a unique experience for people.
Well, I didn't realize it was courageous. I was just, my philosophy is, I grew up being told, no one's like you. You're just the weird one, because people hide themselves from other people. And so when I became an adult, I decided I wasn't going to hide, because other people need to see people like them out in the world. If they can't see them, they'll also grow up thinking, well, I'm alone and I'm broken. So when I came to Griefline, I was very much, I'm not going to hide. I'm just going to be me. And that'll either be good or it'll be bad, but turns out it was really good. And thank you for having me.
I'm a migrant. Like, I came here when I was 17, and I just feel like I've got a lot of from living in Australia, and I wanted to give something back. So I'm retired now, so this was my way of paying it forward. And also during the training, I felt that a lot of the material really resonated with me, the humanistic approach, and just listening and supporting in a non-judgmental way.
I've watched those clips a number of times, and I'm still moved every time I see them. So yeah, and I know that was hard to watch, Casey, so thank you very much for being here. Great job. Griefline Knowledge was launched in 2022 to create an income stream to help us bridge the gap between our government funding and the actual operating costs of the organisation. This initiative offers grief literacy training through webinars, workshops, a speaker program and self-paced online learning for both individuals and workplaces. In the last financial year, Griefline Knowledge generated $200,000 in revenue. We've delivered training to organisations such as TrackSafe, Uniting, Centre for Excellence in Child and Family Welfare, State Trustees and Youth Off the Streets. We equip them with education, understanding, and practical tools to better support their peers, their clients, and themselves. The revenue from Griefline Knowledge is crucial to help us cover the costs of our salaries and our operating costs that are necessary to support the ongoing operation of our helpline and our digital services, many of which are currently unfunded. So Lou and I are really proud to share the milestones with you today, and we wouldn't have been able to achieve them without the incredible support of our volunteers, our students, our staff, our friends, our financial supporters and funders. We're really proud of the impact that we've made together, and with continued support we look forward to reaching even greater heights in the years ahead.